What's up, Philadelphia sports fans? Welcome to the War Room. I am Anthony Pinto. We are War Room Philly. And it looks like we're starting off with issues already here with the press conference. I don't know. It's supposed to be live now. Now it says it's all fair. Now it's 2 minutes. But welcome in if you're watching us live and or demand via YouTube, live via Twitch. What we're going to do today is we're going to watch the press conference and we'll react alongside. Much like the Daryl Morey press conference, hashtag ad, you can kind of, I'll do, my reactions, but I'll also try to keep quiet when it feels important. So if you're out there in chat, feel free to join the conversation in and just follow along with us, and we'll go from there. Let me start fixing this a little bit. Yeah, you see me a little better now. So yeah, it looks like we're going live now. So we'll pull that up. Cool. So yeah, feel free to join in with chat. If you hear something that makes you happy, pissed, whatever, feel free to drop it in chat. I'll especially if I see a comments in chat, I'll try to react to them. But for the most part, while Nick is talking, I will try to do my best to keep quiet, especially if and when it feels important. We also got the Phillies game on in the background, but here it is, Nick Nurse.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Super excited to introduce Nick Nurse, the new head coach of the Philadelphia 76ers. Nick was the coach that we wanted throughout the summer, and we identified him early. Obviously, we've all competed with Nick, so we're glad you're on our side now. And we think, look, he's incredibly innovative, smart, and I think we think he's going to help us achieve our goal, which, as all of you know, and as Daryl, Elton, and everyone on our side knows, is to win an NBA title. Obviously we haven't achieved it. That sits really bad, as bad or worse with us as it does with you. But all we can tell you is that we're going to work tirelessly until we do. And I think Nick is going to be a big part of that success. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Daryl, and thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
So I just have one mission along with Elton and our staff, and that's how do we get ourselves to a championship. That we're tirelessly towards that goal. We're pretty excited about this first step. Obviously, I have a lot of work to do from here, but having the chance to add Coach Nurse to the 76ers is, personally really, really cool, just because we've had a long-term relationship. He's been a championship coach at so many levels. I think at least five championships at all different stops that he's done to grind and continue to improve, including one that's really familiar with Sixers fans, obviously, beating us in that one series. So, he's someone who's a lifelong learner, always trying to find that next edge, and we're excited to be a partner with him as we work on the roster and into next season.
This is the first time I've been in front of the media since I left Toronto. So the first thing I'd like to say is that it was 10 great years in Toronto. Masai Ujiri and Larry Tannenbaum, Bobby Webster, everybody, they treated me really well there. It was a
Can someone fix my
city,
man's jacket?
fascinating country.
What's going on here?
Players, etc.
Yo, Daryl,
So very,
come on,
very
dude.
grateful
Pop
for
his jacket
those 10
down.
years for sure. And saying that, I am super excited to be here. This is a very good team, first of all. The tradition, the city, as a sporting city, and of this organization, is amazing, and I'm honored and humbled and excited to be the new head coach of the 76ers. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing, Nick? Over here. What's up, man? The question I have you, I know this is a great city, whatever, but you had other opportunities, Milwaukee and Phoenix. What was the one thing that stood out to you with this roster? And I know Joel Embiid, but the one thing that made this the perfect job for you?
Well, there's several things you're evaluating. First of all, I know it's a good team because I've been in the trenches trying to battle you guys a lot, and pretty good rivalry. We saw each other a lot in playoffs and stuff as well.
I truly hated him up until this
a big
point.
Factor.
I truly hated Nurse for all the right reasons.
What's most important is
being a competitor against him.
Just like the other side, you do your research and everything I hear is super positive. And I know Daryl and Daryl's track record of getting players and putting together a roster that can compete for the title, I think speaks for itself. And that's what made it a fairly easy decision in the end. Yep.
Hi, Nick. Mike Sealski from the Philadelphia Inquirer. You took some criticism in Toronto for criticizing players, or at least reportedly criticizing players in public before you had spoken to them behind closed doors. How accurate was that, and do you think that's something you need to rectify?
Well, first of all, communication and relationships is the key to doing this job really well, right? And always communicate directly with the players on anything. If there's issues, or if there's schemes, or if there's improvement areas, or anything, be very direct and handle that kind of stuff one-on-one, face-to-face, sometimes in team setting. Communication is the key to being a successful
What is she
coach.
doing?
And,
It looked like
continue
Josh
to do
Harris
it.
was trying to get in the frame. What the fuck was that?
Dan Gelston, the Associated Press. How you doing, Nick? You said you've been in
It
this
looked
trenches
like
with
Josh
this team,
Harris
but
is just
there's
trying
been
to
something that
lick
hasn't
me
quite
if someone
been
wants to
unlocked that's been able
clip
to get
that.
past the second round.
What the fuck?
What do you feel that's been missing that you see when you're on the other side, and what do you feel you can bring to unlock that? How will you unlock that?
Yeah, I mean, my first thought on that is this team could be playing tonight, right? I think that along with some others in the Eastern Conference that probably are wishing they were getting ready to throw the ball up tonight, and that combination of staying healthy, the ball bouncing your way, figuring out the long grind that it is to go from the start of the playoffs to winning a title. All those things, are very difficult. Like, you gotta be able to do all that stuff. And as far as the rest of it, I look at it like this way. I don't really vibrate on the frequency of the past. Like, to me, when we get a chance to start and dig into this thing a little bit, it's going to be only focused on what we're trying to do going forward. That doesn't matter. Next season, whatever's happened for the last how many whatever years, doesn't matter to me. And it's similar to Toronto a little bit, right? That be kind of a clean slate for me. Just looking forward to how we can get it done from start to finish.
Hey, Nick, Gina Mizell from the Philadelphia Inquirer as well. Good to see you. For both you and Daryl, Daryl, you mentioned that you guys have a history together, obviously. Just can you take us back to when you guys first worked together with the Rockets organization in Rio Grande, maybe what that was like, and then why it made sense to reunite, basically a decade later?
Well, for me, I was coaching the Iowa Energy at the time in the old D League, now the G League, as my home state. But I was interested in going to work with Daryl once we started talking. I mean, there was a lot of kind of analytical things, innovative ideas, et cetera, and that kind of really triggered me. I thought it'd be a chance for me to grow as a coach. And, I can just remember some of the things leading in there was like, use that as like a laboratory. We're going to try this and try that. And I think that was kind of what I'd been doing. Some of the other places I'd been coaching, just trying things, and when they work, we kind of keep them in our toolbox, and we don't work, we crumple them up and get rid of them right away. But he encouraged innovation and creativity and trying to find a better way to do things, and that's what triggered me to go there originally.
And that's what this team needs.
I think just thinking back at that time, we were looking for a lot of what we're looking for now in this search, which is a partner who you can define an objective and say, use their creative basketball mind to see how to achieve that, whether it be certain tactical things on the floor or certain ways to construct a roster that obviously everyone's fighting for the same cap tax type resources where you have to fit everything in. Great coaches can help you unlock players that maybe can create value that other teams don't see or can't unlock, and that's the key. It's like, how do you get these players who can help in a partnership with the front office and the coach to achieve a greater objective.
Paul Hudrick, Liberty Ballers. Nick, just you were able to win a championship your first year in Toronto. You have two teams that are in the finals right now that have a lot of continuity, that have played together, coached, have the same coach. How do you kind of make up that gap, that continuity, trying to win a championship your first year in a new place?
Well, I think we will have some continuity on the floor, and I think that's probably the most important thing. As I study, I've studied the Sixers a lot in preparation for playing them, but as I do a deeper dive into studying them, I think it always comes down to this. I'm going to keep all the things that I think are really applicable and that they do really well. We're going to try to cut out some of the things that maybe we can improve on, and it'll kind of develop, from there. And that journey will start day one. And then it takes a bit to get to know each other, both coaches and staff knowing players and players knowing the coaches and staffs, and then we're just kind of constantly polishing and testing and moving, whatever it is, as we prepare to get to the end of April and May and then June, hopefully, right? So I like that there's going to be some continuity. We know that, right? There's going to be plenty of guys that are under contract coming back, and then it's going to be our job as a staff to try to get them up to speed.
Can we have as little continuity with the roster as
I
possible?
think winning a title in the first year as head coach is too hard. It probably can't be done.
Called out? With a GM like you, Daryl, it's going to be hard.
You were able to load manage Kawhi and Leonard and obviously the Raptors to a title in 2019. How might that experience with Kawhi help you with Joel?
Well, I think it'll help a lot. Like you said, the 18-19 season, we went into that with Kawhi, who hadn't played in a long time, so we knew there was going to be a load management is the term. I'm not sure it was the term at the time, but we knew there was basically a plan of how we were going to, we looked at the season in totality, and this is like what we think would be a good plan, kind of break it down month by month, and then kind of like everything else, as you're going, you kind of shift the path or change as more evidence or information becomes available to you, and go from there. But I think it's almost like a subset of a season when you've got a player like that. It is a long-term, season-long vision and plan you have to put together, and then you got to kind of build it up and adjust and change as you go. But I think that going through that with Toronto in 18-19 should be very valuable.
Hi, Nick. Dave Eram from KYW News Radio here in Philadelphia. I know
need
you and Joel
to win
have
an MVP
expressed
anymore.
respect
to
for
win
one
a
another
Finals
in the
MVP.
media before. Keith the other day reported your meeting went well, but at the same time, Joel has taken some jabs at you in the media, the Nick Nurse route of talking to the referees. How do you think that you can make your relationship with Joel work during your time here? And then the second part to that question, given the success at times that you have had against him, what do you think you can do to take his level of success to that next level?
All right, that's a good question. A lot of stuff in there. First of all, I think that it's been an interesting experience coaching against Joel and on many different seasons, and I'll answer the last part of your question. Like, we threw everything almost, I think, you could possibly throw at a guy. 'cause it was that hard for us to try to stop him, right? So we threw a lot at him. So at least I think that we can offensively say this is what we did and here's how we can beat it, and we've almost covered most things, right? So there's one part of that, but the rest of that, it's a little bit entertaining for me because I understand there was some exchanges and things. I didn't even really when you're out there and you're in the heat of really competing, I don't even really remember them, but I accidentally had my TV on yesterday and I saw a couple of them. They were pretty good. I was like, man, I don't even remember that, but now I know what everybody's talking about here a little bit. But and then it kind of grew to such a, for me anyway, a respect.
How does he not say that? Yeah, you're competing against
him,
each other.
It was we'd throw one thing and literally even in that playoff
Come
series,
on.
a game later.
Joel can't hold these as bad feelings. If anything, Nick Nurse. He was the one saying he was bitching to the refs, but that's all Doc did too. And Joel
it was
and
a
James.
tremendous amount of respect level for me, and then, as far as the building the relationship, listen, I think he really competes, and he really wants to be great, and just it's a collaborative effort. Like here's how do you see it? Here's how I see it. Let's figure this out, and for me, I just want him to have as much success as possible, and that translate to team success as well. Yep.
Nick, Howard Eskin, Sports Radio, WIP, right
Yeah.
here, or to Daryl Trent Krim. But you talked about
Let's
philosophies.
go, idiot.
About getting this team to win a championship. The team doesn't seem to be able to get past the second round. You figured out a way. Can you be more specific what you can do with this team, with the core you have, whether James Harden's back or not, to win a championship?
Well, the first thing is, and this is again a little bit of experience or historical background, is some teams, there's you guys have mentioned the second round to me twice already, and we're gonna hit that head on. We know, we're judged on how we play in the playoffs. It was the same in Toronto, that we hadn't played that well, and certain players hadn't played that well, and all those kind of things. So the reality is that's the truth. So I would imagine from day one we're gonna talk about that, and that we're gonna try to attack that. We're gonna have to face it, and we're gonna have to rise above it. That's the mentality part, I think, that you're gonna have to take, right? And then there's all kinds of other things, like can we tactically do things? Can we adjust on the fly? Can we improve as the season goes on? And that's a goal of a coach, is as you go, you want to keep getting better, and then you get to the playoffs and you're one team, and that's a 2-month-long journey, and you got to be better at the end of those 2 months. And
do you want James Harden back?
Pardon me?
Do you want James Harden back?
James Harden's a great player.
That didn't answer the question.
Well, I would say this, is that James has a decision to make, and I'd be very happy if he came back. Yeah.
And Daryl, one quick question for you. You said when you were here before, when you announced relieving Coach Rivers, that you wouldn't let players be deciders and involved in the
Dude,
process.
Howard Eskin is such a
Well, it was
spotlight
reported,
hog.
and
My
obviously,
God.
apparently there's nobody's denied it. Joel and Nick met, so you did let players get involved in the process, and if that's the case, why?
Yeah, I would say, look, I think for a coach to succeed in this league, he has to have, like he mentioned, great relationship with his players, especially his top players. Coach Nurse has talked to all the top players on the team. So, but in terms of the final decision on coach, that was mine.
Nick, Dave Murphy with the Philadelphia Inquirer. Game of basketball.
Yeah, way to make a story there, Howard.
Career. You've been at the cutting edge of that at times. Your best player is a big man now. How do you see that fitting into kind of the current modern NBA and your offense, and what can you do to kind of make Joel Embiid part of a functional championship offense?
Yeah, I think the game is constantly changing. First of all, I think that you've got to always be trying to look at like maybe how things are shifting or how things are shifting back, et cetera. And you know, there's a stretch maybe where people will say, well, you know, the big man is out. Well, a pretty good big man playing tonight for the whole thing, right? I mean, I think there might be a swing back, maybe the other way. I mean, I don't know, but you got to kind of pay attention to all that stuff. But you know, for me, like Joel has a lot of attributes. First of all, defensively, very, very good, right? And then offensively, he's very, very skilled. And again, it's a little bit early, but I think that once it starts unfolding and we start learning each other and all those kind of things, we're just going to try to max it out, right? Whatever that means. I can't sit here and tell you tactically what that means today, but we're gonna certainly try to put him in situations where he's going to be super dominant.
I mean, with regard to Jokic, who you mentioned,
Yep.
I mean, both. I think yes, he's a big man, but if you look at him and Butler, they're also both kind of facilitators. You know, is that something that you think Joel needs to incorporate a little more into his game?
Well, I think that a couple things. The short answer to that is yes. I think he's got the ability to do that. I think it's part of what I historically like to do as well.
This is what I've been
I
talking
also
about
think
for
that there's a lot of changing
a year
defenses
now.
a lot more than you've probably
Yeah,
seen.
the pick and
I don't
roll is
know,
great,
6 or 7
but he
years
needs to be in
ago.
the
So
post
he's gotta be able
too.
to combat and be ready for all those. There's a lot more switching, all those things going on. And we just got to be ready for all of it. Yep.
Hey, Nick. Right here.
Sorry.
Kyle Newbeck, Philly
Kyle.
Voice. Tyrese Maxey, probably one of your clearest paths to, you know, any kind of big internal improvement, I guess. From afar, what has your impression of him been? And then what do you see as, I guess, the next step that you can help him take to be that sort of maybe all-star level player?
Yeah. First of all, from afar, playing against him was very difficult. Just the sheer speed and quickness in that he has it was tough. You know, to game plan against him. Just like sometimes you just can't beat the speed. You can't come up with anything to beat the speed. But what he did, I mean, what our experience is it wasn't just speed and layups. Then he started shooting the ball really well, and then he started making, you know, little further layups, and then a little further. We were trying our best to get him away from the rim, but he'd still make a lot of those. So I think I agree with you. First of all, your thought and your question is he's got a tremendous chance to improve and take a step forward. And from all indications, and that he's really hungry to do so. Good worker, good person, really wants to get better. There's some specifics, I would say, you know, being more of a creator. You know, you said about well, what is creating? Well, creating is you're scoring or you're drawing more people than one, and then you're creating for others. So can he make the reads, all the reads? And I think that's like the first place I would start offensively is getting him, you know, more reps in the pick and roll so he can make the reads to all the other players on the floor depending on what he sees, right? Yeah.
Obviously, defensively, a lot of your guards you had success with in Toronto, Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, not necessarily the biggest guys. And your system in Toronto heavily predicated on wings and guards, kind of pinching the paint, closing out. I guess a guy like Maxey, who his defensive reputation hasn't been, you know, the best. What is the path to turning a smaller guard into, you know, an impactful defensive player?
Yeah. You used a good word there, impactful. You gotta impact the ball a lot as a small player. Like get into it, get up underneath people, get over screens, impact the body of the ball handler. That's one thing I would say that we didn't really think that he wasn't a good defender. We thought he was. Again, we thought, you know, with that quickness and speed and all those things that our guy, you know, he could get up the floor a little bit and disrupt rhythm and all those kind of things. So we'll see. But yeah, we're gonna. I mean, one of the things is you know, we like to guard pretty hard, and especially the ball. So we will certainly be diving into that and probably working on that with him. Yeah.
Hey, John Clark with NBC Sports Philadelphia. You talked about being able to talk to Joel. Have you had a chance to talk to James Harden since you've taken over?
I have.
And what would be your sell job to him about why maybe you can unlock something with him staying here, him and Joel and the rest of the team?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that we didn't get into that, right? When we talked, I am going to sit down, as I am with all the guys, I'm going to go sit down with them all one-on-one, face-to-face here shortly. But listen, I think that winning is always the sell. Like, can we be good enough to win it all? That's got to be a goal of his. And if it is, then he should stay here and play for us, because I think there's a possibility of that.
Did you take the job hoping and expecting that he would be back, or not sure and not expecting that he would come back?
I took the job because of these two guys and their track record of all of it. I mean, listen, I think that, again, I'll get a deeper dive and deeper look at what we actually have and are gonna have going forward later in the summer. Like it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to go super deep into what we have until we know what we have. I'll go super deep into guys we know that are coming back and what skills and things that they may need to develop between now and training camp. But no, I took the job because of these two guys and the players. Yep.
Got two more. We'll start with Kai Carlin and Austin Krell.
Hey Nick, Kai Carlin, Sixers Wire. Fred VanVleet described you as a different guy. It's just in terms of like the schemes and things that you kind of come up with. What's it going to take to kind of get like these guys to maybe buy into maybe an unorthodox scheme or anything like that, like in the middle of a game?
Yeah, just like all of it. Again, it's a collaborative effort. The different, unique, something they've never done or I've never done goes to them and explain to them as to why we think it might work, and then they've got to kind of to buy it, and then they've got to go do it. And if it doesn't work and it's a really bad idea, like I said, we're going to crumple it up pretty quick and move on to something else. But if it does, we kind of put it over here, and sometimes we call our playoff toolbox, something we've tried that worked on a certain guy that we may need down the road. And it really starts with asking them to be open-minded. Like be open-minded here, and we're going to probably do some things that you haven't done before. And I know that because sometimes we don't even as a coaching staff know what they are. They present themselves with a certain group of guys against a certain opponent in a certain situation. So it's kind of open-mindedness and a collaborative effort, really. Yep.
Hey Nick, Austin Krell, thepaintedlines.com. Obviously, you're pretty new to this situation in Philly, but from what you do know about the personnel that you do have, do you envision it in more of a time to integrate defense or offense in terms of what you want to do?
Well, I certainly believe in you got to play both ends, right? That both ends are really important, and I think the style that ends up being the style for the team will be based on how we feel as a staff. Again, we like to guard. I think it's really important. Our coaching staff is going to try to put great game plans on both sides of the ball together each and every night. We want to score efficiently. I think that is always like can we create more possessions than our opponent? Can we take efficient shots? Can we, have low turnovers? Can we get on the offensive glass? All those things that make an efficient offense. And it looks different for every team, and sometimes it looks different for the same team from season to season. So I think that's all kind of TBD. Yep.
Last question, Tim Bontemps.
Daryl, there were a lot of really high-profile, successful coaches on the market. What stood out about Nick in terms of why he was the choice to best lead Philly forward?
Yeah, I think spoke about what we were looking for a couple weeks ago. Obviously, championship pedigree at multiple levels is a big factor. His creativity, like I mentioned before, the fact that a partner and how to create results together, I think is a big factor. I think, he sort of checks every box: relationships with players, working with star players, tactics, someone that people in the league want to play for. I mean, it's a pretty long list, and we thought he was a pretty special candidate. And I appreciate Josh and David, giving us the resources to help make it happen. I think this is just one step towards a championship, but we think it's an important step.
And Nick, you've talked a bunch about, people have asked different ways about you being a creative coach. Obviously in Toronto, you guys had a very different kind of roster, longer, more athletic, didn't have a guy like Joel in the middle necessarily. Are you excited to have an opportunity to work with a guy like that and to kind of do things a little bit different way than you were in Toronto?
Well, I think, again, that's what we did in Toronto. We're just trying to maximize what the roster looked like. I mean, we really had to generate turnovers and get out and score in transition, all those things. 2018-19 was a different roster. We did have, Gasol, and so, we played a different style and a different defense. And, again, it's gonna be like whatever's best for this team, right? Whatever's best for this team, and to try to get them to be the best they can be.
Didn't really give us a ton there, did he, eh? Not necessarily a ton, but alright, it was good. It just didn't it kind of feel like Nick Nurse was dodging some questions here and there? Oof, that feedback was killing me, huh? We can still keep it while they're still diddling in the background or whatever. It didn't feel like Nick Nurse gave us he didn't want to read in too much. He especially got uncomfortable with like the James Harden talk. Didn't give you a lot into that, but obviously, look, he said it though. He'd be happy if Harden's back. And I know there are a lot of angry Sixers fans out there right now that maybe don't want to hear that, but again, it's going to be a lot harder to go out there and find something on the open market, especially your assets are all but gone. I mean, there's not much left at that cupboard. So from here on out, it's what are you looking to get, and what do you think you're going to get? Because this team, like you said, there's no draft pick. Like, we've put in everything we really could to get to this point. So now it's a matter of adding free agents, and it's going to be trading Tobias Harris. That's another way that you're going to acquire pieces and/or assets. But your goal is to win, and it's to win now. The goal is for Nick Nurse to be the first head coach to win, an NBA championship in his first year for two different teams. I'm assuming that's a first. Don't quote me, I guess. But that's his goal. That's our goal. And again, to the angry Sixers fans, and I label that with care, that's what you got to take a step back and look at when you're saying to trade Embiid, who just won the MVP, when you're saying to let Harden walk. And then again, tell me where it's better. Tell me what you're going to, because we've had Kyrie Irving, which I want no part of, but at least on paper, that's a move that's possible. But we all know he's going to LA. And, when you go out and we look back at this list that we've looked at before, what the hell did I think I closed out of my own. I set up a window and then I closed it out, chat. Here we go. But we go back to the list that we always go to. I gotta switch. Hold on. And it's, we're back to this list, and it's people that we've all, we've looked at all these guys before, but none of these people are better than James Harden. Russell Westbrook is trash, ass, and garbage. If you thought Harden was bad, then you're going to love Russell Westbrook. Shit, if you hated Ben Simmons, you're going to love Russell Westbrook. And again, we talked about it even last night, Keith and I. Chris Middleton would be a hell of an addition if you can pull him in. But that still leaves you with, are you then going, then it would be, are you trading Tobias for a 2? And then, then we're cooking. If Middleton's your addition, you're going Maxey. You could go Maxey. You'd have to slot in someone at the 2. Your 3 would be Middleton instead of Harris. And your 4 would be PJ Tucker, because whether you like it or not, he's back. 2 more years of that. I don't like it, for the record. I didn't like it when he was signed here. So, that's at least something. But then you're waiting for your roster to be built around a trade. And how much is Tobias Harris going to net you on the open market? When most fans are just saying to ditch the contract. And then if you want to click over to here and we check out, this is a potential players that have played with Nick Nurse. Again, here's a 2 in Gary Trent Jr., but I'm not sure that is... Again, these are free agent additions that I don't know that they make your roster a ton better. Like, is Maxey, Gary Trent Jr., Middleton, or I'm sorry, who did we just say? What was his name? Yeah, Middleton, PJ Tucker, Embiid. Is that better than Harden, Maxey, maybe still Middleton? Harden, Maxey, Middleton, and then you trade Harris. In a more realistic trade situation, you trade Harris for a role player or 2, then kind of maybe a bad contract, but a player that you can stick on your bench, and then a good player. 2 bench players for Harris. Doesn't that feel more realistic? Because if you think you're gonna get like a good 2 for Tobias Harris, it's just that would be Daryl Morey doing some Howie wizardry, which I haven't seen him do, so I'm not going to say he's capable of it. Ben Simmons for Harden was okay, but you got to remember he also threw Drummond and Curry into that mix. By the way, I think Curry is out there on the free agent list too, if I'm not mistaken. Seth Curry is out here, and he should be available for cheap. Let's do this as well. We could look at the Sixers. So you'll have, Niang is an unrestricted free agent. So you got all these players coming off the books. You'll have player options. So he's probably coming back. Daniel, if it's a player option and he can choose to come back for $4 million, he didn't earn any better than that. So you'll probably be stuck with House. But if you can get rid of him, all the better. Niang, bye-bye, George Niang. Especially if you can add Curry, bye-bye, George Niang. I'd rather a defensive deficiency with Curry at a position that they're more likely to just be shooting from the outside anyway, at the shooting guard or at the 2 guard, whatever you prefer. I'd rather Curry And I think he's a better shooter than George Niang. George Niang is a defensive liability. He can't move his feet, and it's hard to play him come the offseason because of that. Montrezl Harrell, you saw Doc Rivers couldn't get him on the court because he just failed to play offense or defense, more specifically defense. Shake Milton, I called his deal team friendly at the beginning of the year. This is why you don't flip flop. Because when you have like, I hated Shake Milton forever, right? And then I'm like, oh, well, you got to bring him back on that deal, but you shouldn't have because he's a loser. Get him away from this team. I don't care how little he makes. Jaden Springer should be taking his minutes in the immediate future. And then you should still have a backup point guard. That's where I go back to. I would like Van Vliet coming in here as the backup 2. You have Harden, Maxey, DeAnthony Melton, and Fred Van Vliet. Pretty good rotation. Although I guess if Harden's back, then you probably don't need Van Vliet. Now that I just think out loud, especially again if you're going Curry, which I would rather Curry than Van Vliet. DeAnthony Melton would be a fine backup point guard, and then your third point guard would be Jaden Springer. But right now, when it comes to roster construction with the Philadelphia 76ers, it comes down to your two main things is A, is James Harden coming back? B, what can you get for Tobias Harris in the market? Because this roster needs to be different. I know Nick Nurse kind of spoke about the core, but then he kind of was like, well, we're not going to go one-on-one too deep with guys until we know who's here. I think that was one of the big things he did let out while he was holding cards close to the vests. Roster changes are coming. Again, going back to this list, you see that there's a handful of players already that are going to be coming off the books. And honestly, the only one that I look at on this list outside of Harden that I want back is maybe Paul Reed. But I want him back as the third center. We can go find our backup center right now. First of all, maybe we can recruit Dwight Howard back from Taiwan. That would be my first choice, just being a fanboy. It does look like Drummond will be available again, depending on what he wants to make. Now coming down at this lower of a number, I would say bring Drummond back, and then you have Drummond and Paul Reed. Embiid, Drummond, Reed as your 1, 2, and 3. But let's just go through this list and make sure we're not missing anybody. I'm currently looking for anybody with maybe ties to Nick Nurse. But yeah, in my opinion, and again, looking at the numbers too, I think that's the move. I think you bring back Drummond, who would probably want to come back at this point. If we're going off of these numbers, if he's going to make somewhere in this area, the Sixers can probably afford that. Still get those other pieces that we've been talking about, and you kind of start building your team. You kind of start building like a little bit of a starting 5. Oops. But again, you go Harden, Maxey, Middleton, PJ, Embiid. Right there, that's a good starting 5. Especially with depth behind it. If you go out there and you got to remember that you have Melton already. it becomes a pretty good run. And then again, we talked about maybe your backup center being Drummond. AD will just go, or I'll do Drum because AD kind of just feels too much like Anthony Davis. And then you got Paul Reed. They're your backup centers. You found that. Maybe you go Curry as a shooter from the bench. You found that. And then you probably, what's that, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? These two other pieces, 10 and 11, would probably be, and they're probably up the list too. That's probably pieces that you get for Tobias Harris. So we'll go like, after Drummond, we'll just go Toby, number 1, Toby, number 2. Just because this is bothering me, Curry would be ahead of Paul Reed in this order if I'm like building a rotation. But there's your 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Springer. $12. You got one more piece. One more piece. Maybe even get 3 for Toby. But there's look how quick we just built up a Sixers off-season plan. Like, just like that. I was drawing it up during the press conference. But I mean, isn't that like, gets a little bit of the juices going. It feels realistic. Like, sure, don't I want to put Kawhi Leonard somewhere in there? Hell yeah. I just, we were talking about that last night's show with Keith, which, follow us on YouTube and check out that maybe right after you're consuming this video, or maybe, you did one then the other. The Phillies have indeed lost, by the way. So another one down to the Mets. They were swept by the Mets, right? Today's the last game of that series, right? Yeah, swept by the Mets. How fucking about that? So yeah, I mean, this is a formidable lineup. You know what's really bothering me right now, chat? These are the things that go. I don't know why, but up here in the starters, I didn't capitalize anybody's name in the starting, but then I have everybody down here capitalized, and it's driving me nuts. But again, going back to it, what's not driving me nuts is this potential. Again, it really matters who's in here. Who do you get for Toby? And maybe the piece that you get for Toby is a piece that ends up being here, and you can make more, even though PJ Tucker is overpaid, you can kind of put that money onto the bench until maybe at least the playoffs, or you have a power forward that's kind of formidable to go in and out of the lineup with PJ, and you kind of use a little bit more load management for him throughout the season as well. Look, PJ Tucker, we saw what he could provide in both the good and bad for the Sixers in the playoffs. But you still have to put up with regular seasons of all of that as well. And it's good in the postseason because he's got all those intangibles, but it gets rough at times to deal with him throughout the regular season. If you can trade him, by all means, get whatever you can for him. But that, in my opinion, that move is that contract's unmovable. So that's why I just have him slotted in at the start for now. But to me, if James Harden's back, this is a very attainable lineup. You go out there and you have this offseason. And again, these Toby pieces are interesting. You don't know where they go, and there's still a spot. There's still 3 spots. I mean, it's 15 men on a roster, but you have I was just trying to get at least close to the 13 that you would activate. And again, who knows? Maybe Springer has some trade value. I don't think so. I actually think right now he's more valuable on your team, on your bench. Let him get worked into a bit of a rotation, get some playoff or get some regular season minutes in. It'd be nice to see him because he's a pick that I liked out of college. We just haven't really seen much. We haven't really got to see him on the court outside of blowouts. But yeah, there it is. I think that is the plan. I'm gonna save this little note too, and we can we'll just continue, to monitor what the situation looks like as far as the Sixers offseason goes. We kind of have to just sit and wait, it's like detention. We're gonna have to just watch the finals now and wish we were in it, and all we want is to dream of the offseason. But we'll see if this is attainable for the 76ers. If James Harden comes back, I think this is a roster that can compete. I'm going to say it one last time. Again, it comes down to what you get for Tobias Harris. These pieces have to be formidable. Probably even be, contend. Like I said, one of these should be in this spot as well. If you're really doing the job correctly. Not PJ will be your starter come playoff time, but you have somebody that you could put in there in the regular season just to get his minutes, to kind of subside his minutes. But you need, with the team currently constructed, you need this to be a power forward or point forward, whatever you call them, and you probably need both of them, in fact, to be either, this one you probably want to be something like that. And then you would have probably one more, something like that underneath of Springer, maybe, or to go with him. Maybe even another power forward / center to be down there at the bottom just to fill in the depth. But I think this is something like this should be what the Sixers offseason plan looks like. But yeah, with that, it's been a fun little press conference that we got to catch up and see today. It was interesting to see Nick Nurse here. It's hard to get excited over a head coach press conference. It's not like he's going to come in and give you anything. So the press conference itself was a little, I guess you could say, boring. But what is exciting is the opportunity that I think that this team is going to... I think that Nick Nurse is going to come in here and, like I said, be the X and O's guy like we talked about last night. So, again, if you want more of our thoughts on the Nick Nurse and all of Philadelphia, we went 4 for 4 last night on the show with Keith. Check that video out on YouTube. It's probably right below this one if you're watching that one and then came to here. Hi, thanks for watching both too. But, yeah... Make sure you subscribe to YouTube. Follow us, twitch.tv/warroomphilly, facebook.com/warroomphilly, and at warroomphilly on absolutely every social media platform that you can find us on. So with that, it's time to put a bow on this pretty little show. Thank you guys all for tuning in, both live and on demand. I am Anthony Pinto, and we are out of here.